Her grandmother was humiliated by arrogant executives, but they didn't know she was their new boss. In that moment when arrogant laughter echoed through the luxurious conference room, none of the elite executives could imagine that the elderly woman they had just publicly humiliated not only possessed enough fortune to buy and sell their careers 10 times over, but that before the end of that day, the crystal empire they had built would be in the wrinkled hands now holding a simple cheap pen. Be sure to subscribe and let me know where you're watching from in the comments. It was the annual shareholders meeting of the Monarch Luxury Hotel Group, one of the most prestigious hospitality chains in the world. The opulent conference room was filled with board members, executives and major investors, all impeccably dressed in designer suits and adorned with expensive watches and jewelry. As Chief Financial Officer Robert Pierce presented the quarterly earnings report with impressive graphics on a large screen, the door at the back of the room opened slightly. An elderly woman of perhaps 75, wearing a simple beige cardigan and carrying a worn leather handbag, entered quietly and took a seat in the last row. "Excuse me, ma'am," whispered a young assistant, approaching her immediately. "This is a private meeting. The public tours of the hotel are conducted in the lobby." "Thank you, dear," the woman replied with a gentle smile. "But I believe I'm in the right place." The assistant frowned, examining the woman's appearance, her sensible shoes, her unfashionable glasses, her silver hair in a simple bun. Clearly this was some confused tourist or local resident who had wandered into the wrong room. "I'm sorry, but this is a shareholders' meeting for the Monarch Luxury Hotel Group," the assistant explained slowly and loudly, as if speaking to someone hard of hearing. "It's restricted to board members and qualified investors only." Several nearby executives turned to look, their expressions ranging from amusement to annoyance. One woman in a crimson business suit whispered audibly to her colleague, "Security is really slipping these days. They'll let just anyone wander in off the street." The elderly woman remained calm, opening her purse to retrieve a small envelope. "Perhaps this will help clarify things," she said, handing it to the assistant. The young man glanced at the envelope dismissively before opening it, clearly expecting to find some irrelevant document. His expression froze as he examined the contents. The assistant discreetly approached the CEO, James Harrington, who was sitting at the head table. After a brief whispered conversation and a glance at the papers from the envelope, Harrington frowned and looked toward the back of the room. The presentation continued, but now occasional glances were directed toward the elderly woman, who sat quietly taking notes in a small notebook with a simple ballpoint pen. When the time came for questions from shareholders, a tense silence fell over the room. The CEO cleared his throat. "Are there any questions before we move to the vote on the proposed expansion?" The woman in the back raised her hand slightly. The CEO hesitated before acknowledging her with obvious reluctance. "Yes, the lady in the back." "Thank you, Mr. Harrington," she said, in a clear, articulate voice that carried surprising authority. "I have concerns about the Bangkok expansion. Your projections seem to overlook critical factors in the Southeast Asian tourism market, particularly regarding post-pandemic recovery patterns." The room fell silent as the elderly woman proceeded to deliver an insightful analysis of international tourism trends, currency fluctuation risks, and regulatory challenges specific to the Thai hospitality industry. Her command of the data was impeccable, her reasoning flawless. The CFO, Robert Pierce, attempted to rebut her points. "With all due respect, ma'am, our analysis is based on extensive market research conducted by top consulting firm." "Yes, by Blackridge Consulting," she interrupted gently. "I've reviewed their methodology. It fails to account for the seasonal variance in Asian markets and overlooks critical cultural factors that influence occupancy rates in Bangkok versus other Asian capitals." Pierce's face reddened. "And you would know this how, exactly?" The elderly woman smiled. I've had some experience in these matters. Miranda Winters, the Director of Global Development and architect of the Bangkok expansion plan, leaned forward with visible irritation. Who are you, exactly? What kind of experience qualifies you to question our strategic planning? Before the woman could answer, the meeting was called back to order. The votes were tallied on various proposals, with the Bangkok expansion narrowly passing despite the concerns raised. During the coffee break that followed, the woman was pointedly isolated, with executives and board members clearly avoiding her. However, a few curious junior staff members observed her from a distance, whispering among themselves. One young financial analyst, Thomas Chin, eventually approached her. "Excuse me, but your analysis of the Bangkok market was fascinating. I've been working on similar projections and noticed the same discrepancies, but nobody would listen to me." The woman smiled warmly. "Sometimes it takes courage to speak truth to power, especially when you're young. What's your name, dear?" "Thomas Chen, junior analyst in market research," he replied, offering his hand. "Pleased to meet you, Thomas. You have a good eye for data." Miranda Winters approached them, her high heels clicking aggressively on the marble floor. "Thomas, you're needed by your team." Now, the dismissal was clear, and Thomas reluctantly excused himself. As the meeting reconvened, Miranda took the podium for a presentation on rebranding the hotel chain's budget line for broader appeal, a thinly veiled plan to raise prices while maintaining the same service level. "And of course," Miranda said with a pointed look toward the elderly woman, "our strategy is based on sophisticated consumer psychology and demographic analysis, not outdated business models from the last century." Scattered laughter rippled through the audience. The elderly woman remained composed, making occasional notes. When Miranda called for questions, the woman raised her hand again. With visible reluctance, Miranda acknowledged her. "Your rebranding strategy seems focused entirely on cosmetic changes, rather than substantive improvements to guest experience," the woman observed. "In my experience, this approach invariably leads to short-term revenue spikes, followed by steep customer loyalty declines." Miranda's smile tightened. "In your experience, and what hotel chains have you managed?" "Vasquez," the woman supplied calmly. "Eleonora Vasquez." A murmur rippled through the room. Several board members straightened in their seats, suddenly alert. The CEO, who had been checking his phone, looked up sharply. "Eleonora Vasquez," repeated the CEO, his voice strained. "Not the Eleonora Vasquez who founded Stellar Stay Hospitality." The woman nodded modestly. "Yes, though that was many years ago." The atmosphere in the room instantly transformed. Stellar Stay had been a pioneering hospitality group that revolutionized the industry before being sold to investors for billions. Its founder, Eleonora Vasquez, was a legendary figure in business circles, known for her brilliant strategies, ethical leadership, and reclusiveness in recent decades. Miranda Winters had gone pale. "But we were told the majority shareholder was a corporate entity, Vasquez Holdings." "That's correct," Eleonora confirmed. "I prefer to maintain my privacy. But recent developments in your executive strategy concerned me enough to attend in person." The CEO quickly called for a brief recess and approached Eleonora, extending his hand with newfound warmth. "Miss Vasquez, it's an honor. Had we known you were coming, then I wouldn't have seen how this company truly operates," she finished for him. "Mr. Harrington, I've been watching from afar as Monarch has gradually drifted from the principles that once made it exceptional." Meanwhile, frantic Google searches were being conducted on smartphones throughout the room. Junior staff members were shocked to discover that the unassuming elderly woman was not only a pioneering businesswoman, but also held honorary doctorates from 3 universities, had written 2 influential books on hospitality management, and had quietly acquired a controlling interest in Monarch through a series of strategic investments over the past 5 years. Robert Pierce, the CFO, who had been particularly dismissive, stood frozen, staring at his phone screen, which displayed a Forbes article about Eleonora Vasquez's estimated net worth, over $4 billion. When the meeting resumed, the dynamics had completely changed. Eleonora was invited to the head table, where she declined the CEO's offer to take his seat. "That won't be necessary, James," she said, "but I would like to address the board, if I may." All attention was riveted on her as she spoke. The Monarch Group was once known for exceptional service, ethical business practices, and treating both guests and staff with dignity. These were the qualities that attracted me as an investor. She paused, surveying the room. "Unfortunately, what I've observed today, both in the meeting and in my anonymous stays at 12 of your properties over the past month, suggests these values have been compromised in pursuit of short-term profits." Gasps and murmurs filled the room. She had been secretly evaluating their hotels, experiencing their service as an ordinary guest would. "Effective immediately," she continued, "I am exercising my rights as majority shareholder to call for a comprehensive review of executive leadership and corporate strategy." The remainder of the meeting proceeded in a blur of tension and uncertainty. Miranda Winters attempted to defend her strategies, but her arguments fell flat in the face of Eleonora's measured, evidence-based critiques. As the meeting concluded, an exodus formed around Eleonora. Board members who had previously ignored her now competed for her attention. Executive assistants scrambled to rearrange dinner reservations to include her. Business cards were discreetly offered. Through it all, Eleonora maintained her composed demeanor, neither gloating over the reversal nor expressing anger at the previous treatment. Thomas Chen, the junior analyst who had approached her earlier, hung back uncertainly until Eleonora beckoned him forward. "Thomas, I appreciated your insights earlier. Would you have time for a cup of tea? I'd like to hear more about your observations regarding our Asian markets." As they walked out together, the billionaire owner and the junior analyst, Miranda Winters, watched with a mixture of fury and fear, already calculating how to salvage her career. The next morning, an emergency board meeting was convened in the same conference room. Eleonora arrived early, dressed in the same modest style, but now received with deference by every staff member she encountered. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began once everyone was seated, "I've reviewed the company's internal reports, customer feedback data, and employee satisfaction surveys. What they reveal is concerning." With methodical precision, she laid out the evidence: declining service quality, increasing customer complaints, high employee turnover, and ethical corners being cut in pursuit of growth. "Most troubling," she continued, "is the apparent disregard for the human element that is the heart of hospitality. Yesterday I was treated as invisible until my name and wealth were recognized. I've observed similar treatment of guests who aren't staying in premium suites, and of staff members at all levels." Several executives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "This isn't merely a moral failing," Eleonora explained. "It's a fundamental business error. Hospitality is at its core about human connection and dignity. When we forget that, no amount of marble lobbies or champagne service can compensate." Over the next week, the repercussions of Eleonora's appearance rippled through the company. Senior management held tense meetings behind closed doors. Rumors of impending dismissals spread throughout the organization. Miranda Winters was the first to go, though she was given the opportunity to resign rather than be fired. Robert Pierce, the CFO, followed shortly after. Several board members who had been particularly aligned with the aggressive profit-first strategy announced their departures to pursue other opportunities. In their place, Eleonora appointed individuals known for both business acumen and ethical leadership. Surprisingly to many, Thomas Chen was promoted to head a new guest experience task force, reporting directly to Eleonora. The press caught wind of the shakeup, and business publications ran features on the Vasquez method and how a billionaire in disguise transformed a hotel empire. 3 months after the fateful shareholders' meeting, Eleonora called a company-wide video conference. Employees at all 73 Monarch properties around the world gathered in conference rooms and break areas to watch. "When I founded my first hotel," she began, "I started as a housekeeper. I believe this gave me a fundamental advantage in understanding that hospitality is built from the ground up, not from the boardroom down." She outlined a new vision for Monarch: fair wages for all employees, a renewed focus on guest experience over cost-cutting, sustainability initiatives that went beyond marketing gimmicks, and a commitment to the communities where their hotels operated. "Some will say these policies will hurt our bottom line," she acknowledged. "They are wrong. 30 years of experience has taught me that treating people with dignity, whether they're cleaning rooms or staying in them, is not just right, it's profitable." The Bangkok expansion was redesigned with input from local staff and community leaders. A new profit-sharing program was introduced for all employees. Training programs emphasized emotional intelligence alongside technical skills. 1 year after Eleonora's revelation, Monarch Hotels hosted its annual leadership conference, but with a difference. Rather than being restricted to executives, representatives from all roles and levels were invited to participate. The conference opened with a panel discussion featuring Eleonora alongside a veteran concierge, a housekeeper with 20 years of experience, and a recent hospitality school graduate. "Our greatest asset isn't our real estate portfolio or our brand recognition," Eleonora told the attendees. "It's the humanity we bring to each interaction, each decision, each moment of service." The company's financial results reflected the success of her approach. While initial adjustments had indeed affected short-term profits, customer loyalty scores had soared, employee turnover had plummeted, and the Monarch brand was now featured in articles about ethical business practices and workplace excellence. Miranda Winters, watching from afar in her new position at a competitor hotel chain, finally understood what she had failed to grasp before. Sustainable success came not from aggressive tactics, but from building genuine value. At the next annual shareholders' meeting, held in the same conference room where it all began, Eleonora announced her intention to step back from day-to-day operations while remaining as chairwoman emeritus. "My journey with Monarch comes full circle today," she said. "When I walked into this room last year, I was judged by my appearance rather than my capabilities. It was a powerful reminder of something I learned long ago, that dignity and respect should never be contingent on status, wealth, or position." She introduced her successor as CEO, Thomas Chen, the junior analyst who had recognized her wisdom when others saw only an old woman in outdated clothes. "Thomas understands what truly matters in our business and in life," she told the shareholders. "He knows that we are in the business of humanity first, hospitality second, and profit third, and that when the first two are done right, the third follows naturally." As she concluded her remarks, Eleonora looked around the room at faces that now regarded her with respect and admiration. "The most valuable lesson I can leave you with is this: everyone you meet, whether they're wearing designer suits or maintenance uniforms, whether they arrive in limousines or public buses, deserves to be seen, heard, and treated with dignity, not because of who they might secretly be, but because of who they inherently are, human beings worthy of respect." With that, Eleonora Vasquez, the unassuming billionaire who had transformed the company by first appearing as its least important visitor, handed over leadership to a new generation that had learned never to judge a person's worth by their appearance. Activate the bell so you don't miss our next stories. and leave your like to support us. Leave a comment to show that you reached the end of this exciting story. You can also subscribe to the channel to help us continue creating stories full of emotion and hope. Your support means a lot and inspires us to continue sharing these stories with you. Thank you for following us on this special journey.